Hi and good morning, everyone. Today we will learn about the four basic principles of interpersonal communication. All right. So the first principle, if you look at it, it says communication is inevitable, which means you cannot escape communication. Let me read it first. We are constantly communicating. Communication is a transaction process between a sender and a receiver. Competent communicators are constantly aware of what messages they are sending. Consequently, you should ask yourself, what messages am I sending out? How will people interpret these messages? How will I respond if I received this message? Once you start becoming aware of the messages you are sending, you will be able to begin developing effective and efficient communication skills. So it basically means that, when we communicate, we use both verbal and non-verbal signals. Either you talk and communicate, or you communicate through actions. There are many ways in which you're communicating. And it is inevitable because you cannot stop sending out these signals. Even if you close your mouth, even if you don't talk to someone, you are still sending out a signal. For example, think about a sage, uh, a, a person who, a monk who's sitting in meditation for a number of years without speaking to anyone. What is the message sent out by the monk or the sage? Is he trying to say something? We still try to figure out what the monk is trying to say. Maybe the monk is saying that, you know, talking to someone is useless. Talking to human beings is useless. Staying alone is the solution to find nirvana. There are so many meanings we try to find out from what the monk is not saying. Not saying, alright? He may not open his mouth and he may not tell us what lessons are to be learned from his meditative process, but we still try to find out meaning. So we cannot stop finding meaning from people not talking to us. You cannot escape communication. Even when you close your mouth, even when you don't respond, I send you a text, I send you a message over WhatsApp, you look at the message, you don't respond. When you don't respond, also you are saying something. You are saying, I'm not interested in your message. You are saying, I don't believe what you're saying, what you have written. So it is a waste of time to reply to you. There are thousands of things that you are saying even when you don't respond. So communication is inevitable, which means it is inescapable. You cannot escape it. The second principle is communication is irreversible. Once something is spoken, it cannot be unspoken. Often, in a fit of rage or when we are in a relaxed social setting, we often say things that should not be said. As a competent communicator, your communication should remain positive and focus on building relationships. A good any form of good communication is to form good relationship with people, a good bonding with people. So your words are like an arrow. Once it leaves the bow, once the arrow is shot, it cannot fly back. All right, you cannot bring it back. So be very careful about what you are saying, because once you say it, it is said, it is done. There is no way in which you can repair what you just said, especially when you're angry. So the best thing to do when you're angry is switch off your phones, go offline, don't talk to anyone for a few minutes, stay away from that situation. Don't stay there and, get more angry about it. Get away from it, maybe listen to some music, because if you open your mouth, you're angry, you have said something in return, you will be sorry for the rest of your life. So think before you speak, right? You cannot reverse what you said. So that is the second principle of communication. The third principle of communication is complex. Different words mean different things to different people. We use words as symbols to communicate. We ascribe meanings to these words that usually have connotative and denotative meanings. Connotative meanings are the literal definition of a word, whereas the denotative meanings are the implied or underlying meaning of a word. Therefore, a good communicator will seek clarification to ensure the messages sent and received are interpreted accurately. So, why is communication complex? Because not everything that we said are understood by the other person the same way as we wanted them to understand it. You know, words have different meanings for different people. So, it gets complex when we are using a word which has two kinds of meanings. For example, I'll give you an example of a connotative and a denotative meaning. When I say the connotative meaning of the word blue means the color blue. Her dress is blue, which means her dress is of blue color. That is the connotative meaning of the word blue. And the denotative meaning, which here if you see, denotative meaning is the meaning that is underlying. It is not the implied meaning, it is the implied or underlying meaning of a word. If I say she is feeling blue or I am feeling blue, I do not mean the color blue. I mean I am feeling sad, alright? So the same word blue can have two meanings. I will give you another example. Uh, if I say you are a dog, alright? So when I say you are a dog, I don't literally mean that you are a dog. I don't mean you are a Labrador, an Alsatian. I don't mean to say you are, a pug. There are so many kinds of dogs. I don't mean to say that you are actually an animal that has four legs, that is very faithful. I don't mean that. When I say you are a dog, there are other meanings that other things that I mean to say. All right. So the word dog can have different meanings according to the context in which you're using it. Why did I call you a dog? Understood? So communication is complex. I'm trying to say something, I'm trying to use one word, but that same word can mean something else. That is how communication becomes complex. So, therefore, a good communicator will seek clarification. You'll have to find out what the person exactly wanted to say when they sent across that message. So, without finding out, without seeking clarification, don't assume, don't think. Don't just sit there and say, I think this is what she meant. I think this is what he meant. You cannot just assume what other people mean. You'll have to find clarification. If you do not understand, if you haven't understood the message properly, please seek clarification. Talk to the other person. Ask them what they meant when they said that. That is how it becomes complex, all right? And the last one is communication is contextual, based on a context. And under this, there are again four different contexts in which a person understands a message. The first is psychological context. Psychological context refers to the state someone is in, that is the mood and emotion. Depending on what you are feeling and what your audience is feeling will have a significant impact on the communication that is taking place. So I'm trying to say something, but your mood is not correct, your psychological state of mind is not correct. So you can take the literal meaning of the entire message in a negative way. All right, what you understand depends on your mood, depends on your the kind of emotional state you are in. So that is why every message has a psychological context. Sometimes people misunderstand us because maybe when they were listening to us, their mood was not in the right, it was not set right. They were in a bad mood. They did not want to understand what they are saying. They were in a different emotional level. So that is why this first context is psychological. When I say psychological, it means to do with your mind. So your mind is not in the right place, you will not understand my message clearly. All right, to understand somebody's message, you have to be in the right frame of mind. The other context is relational context. Relational context refers to the degree of depth you have with the other person. The communication with a stranger in the airport will take on a completely different nature than communication with your long-time friends or partner. So, relational context means what kind of relation you share with that person. You're a very close associate of that person, or you met the person for a first time, or that person is a complete stranger to you. Depending on that also, you understand meanings in different way, you understand messages in different way. So when a friend tells you something and a stranger says you the same thing, you understand those two messages on a different level, because your relation with those two people are again on a different level. So that is the relational context, the kind of relation you share with the sender of the message. The third one is situational context. It refers to the engagement where the communication is happening. That is, where is it happening? The office, the pub, the coffee shop, in private, in public. So, situation. What situation were you in when I gave you the message? Were you in a library? Were you in a coffee shop? Were you in a bar? Were you, in a private place? Were you inside your room? Were you out in the public? So, depending on that, also, people may misunderstand your message depending on where they were, what situation they were in. Right? So, you're trying to send across a message, but there's this person traveling on an auto rickshaw going to the airport or wherever, so just traveling, and there's a lot of noise. Depending on that, there can be miscommunication. So situational context also comes to play. And the fourth one is the cultural context. Cultural context refers to the learned behaviors and norms of a particular culture. Different cultures communicate differently and have different ways of interacting. For example, the use of eye contact is a powerful form of nonverbal communication. From a Western cultural perspective, steady eye contact is a sign of engagement and respect when communicating and listening. However, eye contact from different cultural perspectives can signal aggression and disrespect. As a result, an individual from a different cultural perspective may avoid eye contact out of respect. So, culturally, we are from different cultures. For Indian culture, will teach us a few things which is not prevalent in Western culture, and Western cultures have a few things which we do not understand. All right. So, depending on the cultural background of the receiver and the sender, there may be communication problems. Just like the example given here, in Western culture, we make sure when we talk to people, we maintain eye contact with them. It shows our confidence, it shows that we are not lying. All right, that is according to Western culture. But if you look at some Middle Eastern culture, you go to some place in the Middle East, and when you're talking to people, you constantly keep looking at them, staring at them in the eye. It may mean disrespect. You're trying to be disrespectful. So instead of looking at the eye, you turn down your gaze and you talk politely to people. So depending on different cultures, people have different ways of perceiving things. All right, the same the same uh, the same, what do you call it, aspect of looking at someone's eye can have two different meanings for two different people coming from two different cultures. I am not trying to disrespect you. I am trying to make sure that I am confident. I look confident. But the other person thinks this person is continuously staring at me. Maybe this person does not respect me. He should not be looking at my eye. Alright? He should be looking down and talking to me. Why is he staring at me? So, depending on our different, forms of culture, we take meanings of our communication that ways. Alright? So, Please make sure you know what cultural background the other person is coming from before you communicate to them. Please make sure you understand what situation that person is in before you send across a message. Make sure you know what you know relation you share with that person before you send across a message, and make sure that the person receiving the message is in the right state of mind before you send a message. All right, so these four things are reasons why we say that communication is contextual. It depends on context. It depends on many contexts. So these are the four contexts in which communication depends. So these are the four basic principles of communication. A good communicator will look at all four basic principles and realize how to become a better communicator. You know, will realize how our words are being misunderstood, will realize how we should improve our communication by keeping all these in mind, by not speaking out of context, by making sure we think before we speak because we cannot take it back, by making sure that even when I'm not speaking to someone, I am passing across a message to that person, and by making sure that we remove the complexities of communication by making it more clear, by making sure that we are giving the right meaning to the word that we are talking about. All right, so yes, that's it. The four basic principles of communication. If you've got any doubts regarding the four principles, we will talk about it again in the next class. For today, please keep this in mind and make sure that your form of communication is the right form of communication. Thank you.